Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 39. Everybody's a filmmaker today. John Milius.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, guys. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free audiobook from audible.com. And our sponsor today is USC Film School's only online film course, Directing the Actor, taught by the legendary Nina Foch. You can head over to indiefilmhustle.com/USC to download that. Today, guys, we have Paul Castro. He is the writer of one of my favorite movies of the last 15 years or so, 20 years or so, August Rush, starring the late Robin Williams, Freddie Highmore, Keri Russell, and Jonathan Rhys Meyers. It is a wonderful, wonderful film. He's a master lecturer and teacher, screenwriting teacher. He's been teaching at UCLA, considered arguably one of the best screenwriting courses you can take to become a screenwriter. And the amount of the Academy Award winners and sold screenplays that have come out of that program is remarkable. So what Paul did was actually create his own course called the $1 Million Screenplay, and he basically took everything he taught at the UCLA film school and put it in this course. And I have to tell you, it is remarkable what he's been able to put in this course. It is really, really great. So when I took the course, I had to get him on the show, had to talk to him, and wanted to get deeper and deeper into what he's doing and how he's doing it. So sit back, relax, and like I always say, prepare to take some notes because this one's a doozy. Get ready for our interview with Paul Castro. Paul, man, thank you for taking the time out to come on the Indie Film Hustle podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
Sure, Alex. Absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
So I want to jump right into it. So how did you get your foot in Hollywood's door, which is a screenwriter's, I think one of the ultimate questions for all screenwriters, like, how do you break through? There's so much noise. There's so many people trying to do it. How did you get your foot in the door?
Yeah, it's a valid question and one that is asked perpetually throughout the years by up and coming screenwriters and even my friends who have also taken similar paths. I was on the East Coast and I was in a suit and tie job out of college in the Washington, D.C. area, and it wasn't terribly pleasant. And I made the decision to go to Hollywood in the attempt of trading daydreams for dollars as a professional screenwriter. And I thought UCLA Film School would be the best path, being that the majority of Oscar winners have come out of that program. So I thought that would be a good start. So I drove cross country in my truck and I was excited to go to UCLA. There was only one challenge, Alex.
Which is?
I got rejected.
Of course. You already packed up. You bought the t-shirt, you bought the hat, the mug.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, everything. And so I contacted or attempted to contact the chair of the department to no avail. So I went to UCLA and I put in the mailboxes of every film professor the top 10 reasons why they should reconsider my application. And I just, printed it out and put it in their mailbox in hopes of some type of response. Fortunately, the chairperson of the department called me up and said, "Oh, we got your top 10 list. It was very funny, made us all laugh." And I said, "Well, great. Am I in?" And he said, "No, absolutely not."
But thank you for the hustle. I appreciate it.
Exactly. So a year later, I did apply again, and fortunately, I was one of the 18 to get in. And it was a good year. I was glad, looking back on it, that I didn't get in because it gave me a chance to really hone my craft and write and take seminars and read books and do everything I could humanly possible to inculcate myself into the system in an organic, holistic way. So at UCLA, we had to write a full-length feature-length screenplay, Alex, every 8 weeks for 3 years.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, it took me forever to write my first feature script.
Yeah, right.
Holy
It's
cow.
challenging. So, and those who couldn't keep up were invited to leave the program. So I felt, wow, I got to get this done. So, yeah, I got really lucky because of that pressure, because I had to come up with ideas.
Of
And
course.
I have a nephew named Anthony, and he at the time was 5 years old. He was like a redheaded Harry Potter type kid, right?
Right.
And he was born on August 5th, and he kept looking off into space and kind of pondering life a lot. And I said, "Hey, what's going on? What are you thinking about, little guy?" And he would say, "Well, do you hear the train in the distance? Yeah. Do you hear the kids playing soccer? Yeah. Do you hear the birds chirping?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Put it all together. It's music." And I went, "Whoa, okay, that's trippy, right?" So it just kind of stayed with me. It resonated with me. And when it was time to come up with another idea for UCLA, I thought, what if this kid had like this amazing musical ability simply because he could take sounds from everyday life? So I wrote a screenplay called Noise, and Noise was about a young musical prodigy named August Rush who uses his gifts to reunite his estranged parents. And I came up with the name August Rush because Anthony was born August 5th, and Jeffrey Rush won the Oscar for a movie called
Yeah.
Shine. You
Yeah.
made that movie.
That's an awesome movie.
Yeah, it was a musical movie, so I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, so it was just one of those things. Okay, here goes another screenplay, and the chairperson of the screenwriting department at UCLA, Richard Walter, who to this day is a dear friend and mentor and wonderful person. So Richard said, "Hey, I really love this screenplay. May I give it to a producer friend of mine?" And I said, "Absolutely not." No, of course. I said, "Yes." Yeah,
Nice, nice. No, no,
yeah.
no. Please, please don't do that.
Yeah, no, please. I wanna marinate in angst and work at Starbucks for the rest of my life. Uh,
Not that there's anything wrong with
you
Starbucks.
know what? Starbucks is part of my daily ritual, and there are many days when I go, man, I just wish I could just chill here and meet people all day and work at Starbucks.
How many screenwriters are at Starbucks on a daily basis here in Los Angeles?
And the best ones are the ones that work there, probably,
You know, the
right?
funniest things is that, and this is hard for people outside of LA to understand, is when you walk into a Starbucks, any Starbucks in the Los Angeles area,
Yeah.
you will see a laptop with Final Draft open. It just, I've not yet found one that there's always somebody working on a screenplay, or if not, you will hear someone talking about the story that they're gonna
You
write.
know what? You know what? You're right. If you get pulled over by a cop for not wearing your seatbelt, you could always ask him, "Hey, how's your screenplay going?" He's gonna go, "Oh, how did you know? It's great."
Welcome to LA, Holly Weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, so that was the situation, and it was serendipity, cosmic choreography, a plethora of luck.
Mhm.
And so I met with this producer, and he really liked the screenplay. He also liked something else I wrote called A Gift for Mom. And I was fortunate. He gave me a three-picture deal.
Oh wow.
And it was pretty substantial. But, I mean, just one of those things. It was just very lucky. There are screenwriters I meet on a daily basis that are enormously talented that have still not, I hesitate to say
Correct.
made it, because what is that really? As long as you're being creative and contributing to the world in some way, shape, or form with your creativity, I think that's success. But
Right.
um,
But being able to make a living doing what you love to do is is
yeah,
the
yeah,
dream. And and that dream is varied for very, like, you don't have to be a billionaire. You can, you can, and that's something we preach at Indie Film Hustle is like, what is success to you guys? Like, is 100 grand a year doing what you love, is that enough?
hmm
Is 50 grand a year, living in Kansas, is that enough? Like,
yeah,
that's the question you have to ask yourself. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
yeah. You're absolutely right. That is a wonderful way to approach it. What is your definition of success? First of all, what is that? So that's how I got started. I got very lucky.
You were at the right place at the right time with the right project.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, I mean, I definitely don't want to project false humility, but
Mhm.
There is a lot of luck to it, but I also do have to say I wrote a lot. By that time, when I sold August Rush, I had written probably 11 feature film
Hmm.
screenplays, maybe 12.
That's a number. I've interviewed a bunch of different screenwriters, and the number is 10, 11, 12 before something gets sold. It's
Yeah,
that's a good number. I mean, there are the oddballs that sell it like their first script or second script or something like that. But generally, you have to kind of like get all the bad scripts out. Say
yeah,
get all the
yeah,
bad writing done early.
right. And I think you already know my philosophy. It's not right about what you know, it's right about what you know hurts.
Hmm.
Everyone has their little owies from life, something that's happened to
Hmm.
them. Usually it's from childhood that has stayed with them. And the writers who are brave enough to go into the belly of the beast of that situation early on, don't have to write the 9, 10, 11, 12 scripts. They can actually nail it on the first or second or third time.
Right.
Um, and you don't have to write about that situation, Alex, as you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's writing about that emotion. So what is an emotion that okay, so when the wave retracts of something that was horrifying or embarrassing or shameful to
Hmm.
you, when that wave retracts, what are the seashell gems left behind? What is that emotion?
And that's where some of the best writing has come from, in a lot of ways, especially when you're starting out. I'd imagine. I mean, I've heard from many different. I mean, I've read every screenwriting book and everything, and
Yeah.
a lot of the gurus and a lot of successful screenwriters as well always say, um, at the beginning you write what you know or that pain that you're saying about. Then later on, as you become better with your craft, you can start creating the Harry Potters of the world and things that aren't based in reality. Is that something that you agree with, or what's your point of view on that?
No, again, I would suggest never second guessing the market and what the market wants and what could sell or should sell.
Hmm.
I mean, you look at something like Aaron Brockovich, okay?
Right.
Would that have ever sold? No, but Julia Roberts said, "Hey, this rocks," and then you have a movie,
And
you know?
Steven Soderbergh was like, "Yeah, I'll do it."
Yeah, it's like that. Everything came together.
All right.
So I'm a big believer, Alex, in give yourself to the world and come from the spirit of contribution,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the universe will conspire on your behalf.
That's excellent. That really is excellent. That's great advice. Now with August Rush, I've always wanted to ask a screenwriter this story. How was the process of getting a story? You've got it sold now. What
Mhm.
is the process of the journey that it went through to get it onto the screen? So like how did the development process go? I mean, you don't have to, I mean, I know this is a very long question, but just, just give us a Reader Digest version of it. Like what was the journey like for August Rush to get it out to the big screen? Because it was released by obviously a major studio with major stars in it. So it's not a slight little indie film. It was a big studio movie at the time. So
Sure.
how was that process?
Yeah. Well, it was an involved process, so I'll walk you through it. And actually, now it's another process because August Rush is going to Broadway.
Oh, how
So
awesome is that? Congratulations.
yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. I'm excited because I think it will translate well to the stage. So yeah, so the Writers Guild only requires, two rewrites and a polish at the time when I sold it. But I was a young new writer, eager to please, so I was in writer, rewrite, and some people would say hell, but I don't think it was. I think it was a wonderful training ground for me.
Hmm.
So over a 2-year period, I did, I don't know, 16, 17 drafts of that script. I'm
Jesus.
serious.
How many years?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Jesus. Just so you're
Yeah.
basically in development, as they call it, development hell.
Well, yeah,
In a
yeah, and
sense.
I never want to use negative connotative words.
Sure. Fair
You
enough.
know,
Fair enough.
yeah, yeah. It was challenging, and it trained me well for my future in Hollywood.
Okay.
Um, and I often joke, something really tragic happened in that process. It got better. So
Sad, amazingly enough, right?
yeah, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't, but it did. And And then after about 2.5 years, my agent, manager, lawyer, business manager, they had an intervention and said, if you keep rewriting for this project, we're going to resign because it's ludicrous. And
You
so
had an intervention. That's brilliant.
yeah, well, that's how I looked at it because
Yeah.
they sat me down and said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
So I went on, and I was doing other projects at the time. I
Right.
did, I had the good fortune of working with Stan Lee, founder of Marvel Entertainment, on 2 projects. And, I had other things going on, but I really loved August Rush, and I, of course, hoped it would get made someday. So a couple of years went by and came really close to getting made. Different directors attached and reading it and liking it. And then the producer did a movie with Robin Williams and said, hey, can you take a look at this script? And Robin read it and said, yeah, but my part has to be more substantial. I believe that's how it went down.
Fair
And
enough.
so the producer wisely hired 2 writers, and they gave it another polish and pass and rewrite. And then about a year and a half later, I believe Robin officially became attached to the project. And when Robin Williams is attached to a project, that's good news for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so fortunately then things were off to the races, and then Freddie Highmore and Keri Russell and Johnny Myers.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a real thing.
So the second that Robin got attached, everything kind of opened. The doors, the floodgates kind of opened up, and everything got got hyped up a bit as far as the
Yeah,
speed is concerned.
exactly. Everything was coalesced and off to the races.
The funny thing is, I had an opportunity to meet Robin once, and I tell you, I've never met a human being, and he was so calm and very, he was not the persona he portrays. He was that kind of energetic guy, but that day he was very calm with his wife,
Mm.
but you could feel the energy coming off of him. It was something that was
Mm.
tangible in the air, like you could sense. And I don't want to get into all the kind of like vibey stuff, but literally you can sense the vibe of the man. I never met a human being like that before, but I got it. I
Yeah,
got it.
you're onto something, and I don't mind you getting into vibey
Yeah.
stuff. I mean,
No,
life
I
is
know
vibey stuff, right?
it is.
Everyone has energy, what is your energy, and are you comfortable with it? Do you like it? Do you like what you're projecting to the world? Is it enhancing your life? Are you
Yes.
empowering people or depleting people? Are they empowering you or depleting you? It all starts with energy, and that's
Yeah.
what resonates from a great script. It just is vibrating the same way you just described.
Yeah. And
The
now,
late, great Robin Williams.
yeah, he was amazing. And one quick note, I actually was watching, I think, a documentary, something on the Matrix boys,
Hmm.
or boy and girl. And they that was in development hell forever because it was
Hmm.
forever, and it took him. They rewrote it. You were saying you rewrote it. They rewrote that for 5 years.
Mm.
5 years, and that's why that movie is so good.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
but to your point, like, sometimes the rewriting process is helpful.
Yeah, something takes over if you surrender to it and you're not kicking and screaming.
Right,
'Cause
right.
we're all very precious with our work sometimes, and I would encourage the opposite. When you just allow it to flow naturally, organically, and take input, and take it, and you don't have to always use it. You can go, huh, that's interesting. Maybe for my next script, But
Right.
yeah,
It's a lot of working with or collaborating with people a lot of times in Hollywood, from my understanding, is that kind of mentality works really well. Kind of going with the flow, kind of like, just kind of riding the waves, because if you try to go against the flow is when you have problems.
yeah, that's a really good point. On the same note, we all, as creatives, need to have a strong, clear vision for what
Mhm.
we want to communicate creatively. And, we're not typists. We get paid for our point of view of the world. And I really believe that's why new writers and old writers, veteran writers, can all be successful, because everyone has a different point of view of the world, Alex, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
you and I, born and raised in New York, and now we're at different places, but
Mhm.
you know, uh, your point of view of the world is very different than mine, and
Mhm.
I celebrate that, and that's why we go to the movies.
And that's the other thing I always try to preach here as well is that filmmakers a lot of times they're just like, oh, I'm gonna be the next Tarantino, oh, I'm gonna be the next David Fincher, I'm gonna try to copy this or that, and I'm like, you'll never be the next Tarantino because there's only one Tarantino
Yeah.
and there's only one voice. I think all the successful writers and filmmakers all have a very loud and distinctive style and voice. And that's what people don't get coming into the business. They all want to try to emulate the next, oh, that's big, so I'm going to do that. I'm like, well,
Right.
that might work once, but it won't sustain a career, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when you say they all have a loud voice, sometimes the loudest voices are the subtle,
Yes.
quiet voices that just have a big impact because of their subtlety and their nuances.
Well, like Wes Anderson. I mean, he's not a very loud personality by any stretch, but his movies
Yeah,
are they scream his style.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and
Rushmore.
Buster Keaton for that matter as well. I mean, he was obviously silent, but his style of humor and his style of storytelling is something that was very distinctive.
Yeah,
Um, so
absolutely.
so let me ask you, when does a writer need an agent or a manager? Is another big question a lot of screenwriters ask.
Hmm. You know, it's a great question, and I think it goes back to the approach of contribution. Okay, most writers, and I was there too, where you say, "I need an agent. I want an agent. I need to sell something. I want an agent or a manager," and you first have to ask yourself, "What do I have in my vault to contribute to this agent or manager?
Yes.
Yeah, what
That's
of
awesome.
value?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Instead of looking at an agent or a manager as like, "What can you do for me?" You should
yeah."
flip the script a bit, and that's awesome advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was in LA, Joe Manganiello,
Mhm.
when he was an actor running around LA, he was also the type of guy who, "Hey Joe, what are you doing this weekend?" "Oh, I'm driving 2 hours to San Diego for a little play that I'm not getting paid for and driving 2 hours back, which oh, by the way, I've been doing for the last month and a half." It was a
Right.
person who was on purpose, not paycheck, looking to contribute at a high level. And the rest of it just, came like an avalanche of abundance for that guy. And it happens for most successful people if they're coming from a place of contribution. Circling back,
Mhm.
for agents, first of all, new writers and all writers and anyone in the creative arts, especially media and entertainment, first needs to realize that agents are not scumbags. Now, are there scumbags in every single profession on the planet?
Yes.
Yes. Well, except for politics. No, I'm just kidding.
Obviously not politics.
Yeah.
They're on the up and up, of course.
Yeah. But there's gonna be that in any profession. So if you're coming to Hollywood and saying, "Oh, all agents are bastards," then yeah, that's gonna be your experience. But
Mhm.
um, I think they're great. If you're contributing to them, they're gonna be wonderful, and they're gonna contribute to you, and they're gonna enhance your career. So I would suggest having a body of work besides just one screenplay. I would, you know, two, three, four, five, maybe some pilot episodes for TV. If you have some non-scripted reality show ideas, sculpt that as well. Let them know that you're just not a one-trick pony. You're in this for the long haul, and you have an arsenal to contribute to them and their stable.
Right. That's amazing advice actually. Now what and this is a
I love how you say that's amazing advice, actually, as if the actually part means usually your advice is terrible, but the actually.
not you, but as a general answer to these kind of questions,
I know, I'm joking.
people
Just
just a lot of times people will just like, oh well, you got to do this and that, and it's like, okay, that's an answer, but it's not like. So what I try to do with my guests is I really try to dig for questions that I want to know answers to. So like like I've always asked them like what do I need to do to get an agent or a manager?
Yeah,
Should I even need one as a director at this point in my life in my career?
right.
And I was like, well, you have to, and that's all about what we were talking about earlier about marketing. Is like you as a creator are marketing yourself to an agent and manager and selling yourself to them to go, look, this is what I can do for you, because it's already assumed that they can do something for the writer if they're
Yeah,
choosing the proper agent or manager.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. It's a good point. And okay, so if I said to a writer, would you like Aaron Sorkin's agent? They would probably say, what?
oh, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
But what if you don't write character-driven, talky type movies that are very deep and insightful and poignant? What if you are the popcorn summer blockbuster action adventure guy or horror film guy? Is Aaron Sorkin's agent the right guy for you? Probably not. Maybe down the hall, his colleague, maybe she's the right agent for you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she is the one that has sold a bunch of horror films. So I think targeting the right representation is just as important as if you should have representation or not.
Now, this is a big question. I'm digging deep here, what is the difference between a screenplay that actually sells and one that doesn't sell? And I know that's a real broad term, so do the best you can.
It's an easy question to answer.
Oh, good.
In Hollywood, they don't buy screenplays, they buy emotion. So if you can make a reader feel something on a very visceral level, then it cannot be ignored. Haley Fox, I always mention Haley by name,
Mm-hmm.
because she was the development executive at the production company that bought my first screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so passionate about it that she says, if you don't buy this screenplay, I am going to quit. And I've been here 7 years, but there's no need for me to be here.
Wow.
She felt that deeply about the material. Now, when writers are coming from a place of truth, facing that hurt that we talked about, those little owies from childhood, and I say little, obviously I'm not making light of it, they're very
Sure.
substantial.
Mm-hmm.
And they can take that hurt or that rage and put it on the page, and then eventually makes it to the big stage of cinema or television. It's because somebody felt something. They felt deeply about it, and it can't be ignored. And those are the screenplays, teleplays, pilot episodes that sell because people all have that response. You look at Eric Roth's Forrest Gump,
Oh,
right?
oh, it's
I mean,
amazing.
Robert Zemeckis gave it to Tom Hanks when he was going on vacation to Europe. And Tom said, "Yeah, I really don't want to read anything. I'm on vacation." And Zemeckis said, "Well, just read like the first 10 pages on the flight." And by the time the flight landed, Tom Hanks was attached to Forrest Gump. So,
And the rest, as they say, is history.
yeah.
Now, talking about emotion, like there's a show I watch now on that I'm loyal to on TV. It's called The Goldbergs.
Mhm.
And Adam Goldberg is the writer and creator of that, and that's literally he's taking his owies every week and
Yeah,
putting them out
yeah,
on the screen. And
right.
but that authenticity, it's not like another '80s show. Oh, it's another. Oh, we're all making fun of the '80s, which I'm a huge '80s fan.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the reasons I like it so much. But the characters, the family, and then every week at the end, he shows a video when he was shot when he was a kid. Where you're like, oh, this is just brilliant.
Mhm.
That's that kind of stuff that you're talking about. That's so emotional in his genre.
Yeah, and Adam's been doing this a while, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so he's finally come to the point where he's like, no, I'm going to give myself. This is the real hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And in real estate, the three most important things are location, location, location. And in writing, especially screenwriting, it's conflict, conflict, conflict.
Yeah. And there's a lot of conflict in that family.
Now,
Which is
if I rewrote myself, it would just be one conflict, right?
exactly,
It'll
exactly.
be economical.
Real quick now, I know log lines is a big question a lot of times for screenwriters. Like, how important is it? Important is it in the selling process? Is it something? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and it's overlooked and it's underrated in the process. If you cannot sculpt a vibrant, lean log line that's going to fully communicate your screenplay or your television show idea, then you're not ready to go any further. It's one of the most difficult parts of the process, Alex. It really is.
I know. I've had to write a couple that they're a pain in the
Yeah,
butt.
yeah. and you're gonna have to try it out with friends and families and rewrite it and see when they glaze over and when they get excited, and you're gonna have to keep working on it until it's really just nailed, right?
And it's like every word means something. Like literally every single syllable means something because the
Yeah,
real estate's so short. It's almost like a tweet.
yeah,
You have to make it really concise.
yeah, yeah. I like that. The real estate is so short. That's a good way of putting it. It is, and people don't have time to really, before I was even represented, I would, try to get agents on the phone, and one time I got Mort Viner. He was an old Hollywood agent, very famous at the time, and Mort sadly has since passed. But it was after hours, and I called, one of the big three. I think Mort was with ICM at the time, and his assistants were gone. So guess who answered the darn phone? Mort Viner. Hi, Mr. Viner. All right, film student. Okay, what do you got? What do you got, kid?
Yeah.
And I literally had to pitch that thing and title, genre, and the pitch, and that was it.
Yeah.
And off of that, he wanted to read the screenplay. And it wasn't because I just took it off the top of my head. Fortunately, I had heard this before copious times at UCLA where they hammered into us, this is very important. So I was prepared. And there's been times when I've read new writers and I read their screenplay and I go, oh my God, this is fantastic. And they go, well, you didn't seem very enthused when I first pitched it to you. Well, that's because your pitch was, well, it's kind of like,
Yes. It's kind of like Forrest Gump meets Hostel, it's kind of
Yeah, and it's challenging when you're using other material to pitch your material, such as saying it's like this and like that, because what if the person hasn't seen one of those or both of those?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And anytime I've actually asked this question before on the show is like if it's kind of like the Matrix meets Cinderella. Uh, if
Nice.
yeah,
I
yeah,
watched that.
I actually would watch that movie too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one key thing, if you are going to do that, and it is kind of like a lot of times a necessary evil to have that in your back pocket because someone's going to ask that question sometimes. At least that's what I've been told. Make sure that you use movies that have been hits.
Well, yeah, yeah, definitely.
So it's like Ishtar meets the Fantastic Four, the new one. So it's like not really gonna help you sell your product very well.
Although there have been movies that were not hits that just, people loved or got great reviews, or its
Correct. Yeah.
time came later on. So
Like
It's a
Shawshank.
Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
The holidays are coming up, and on TV we're going to see It's a Wonderful Life as we do every year. But
Of
when that
course.
first came out, it wasn't well received at all.
Yeah. Well, same like Shawshank Redemption picked up its steam much later on after its initial release.
Yeah, and it's funny. Titles. I know we're not on the title subject,
Sure.
Alex, but I'm
Yeah.
going to bring it up anyway.
That was,
Titles are so important.
that
So
was
you
the
look at
worst title ever.
Yeah, I mean, but it was from a Stephen King
Yeah.
novella, Rita Hayworth and the
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption.
All right.
So being that it was the great Stephen King, are they going to say no, we hate your title? But that was a situation where I think if the title was a little different, it probably would have had a bigger audience.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, it's a masterpiece, and Frank Darabont and
Yeah.
Stephen King. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I know it's absolutely, but yeah, you're right. Like that's the one of the worst titles in history. There was a new movie that just came out with the worst title. Is the Sandra Bullock movie and Billy Bob Thornton.
Hmm.
Our brand is Crisis. I saw the poster for that. I'm like, what? Who came up with that title? It's like I'm sure it's a fun movie, and I love Sandra Bullock. I love everybody in the movie, but I'm like, and it died. It died a miserable, horrible death at the box office.
Yeah.
And I imagine the title did not help the situation.
Yeah, and that's a really important aspect of the whole process. I mean, let's talk about, okay, if you're a parent and you have a newborn on the way,
Mm-hmm.
let's decide. I don't know. Let's not even think about it. Or does it really matter? Okay, it's no. This is your child. You're going to put a lot of thought into what that person's name is.
Mm-hmm.
A dear friend of mine, Luke Fontenot, who's at Warner Brothers Marketing, such a smart guy, and he really, I really think he has the crystal ball into if a movie's going to do well or not, simply because he can look at it from a helicopter point of view and a micro point of view, and
Mm-hmm.
all these nuances we're talking about.
Titles are extremely important, and I think, and again, goes back to marketing and branding, and a lot of screenwriters and artists in general, filmmakers, don't look at their art as product. But
Mhm.
if you look at it as product and market it and sell it as product, even though it's art, you have so much better chance of selling it to whatever aspect you're trying to sell it to in the business. So if you're trying to sell it to an agent, sell it to a production company, sell it to an audience, sell it to the person you're just pitching it to, it's always about selling it and promoting it and packaging it in a right way to get the attention or the end result that you're looking for.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an interesting craft because it's not only a craft, it's a profession, and
Yeah.
it's where art and commerce meet. And a lot of these production houses, mini majors, the big studios, the marketing department has the final word on if a screenplay is going to be greenlit or sold
Hmm.
or bought. It will go through all the proper channels, but if the marketing department goes, "Oh my God, we love it, but we don't know how to market it," then guess what? It's
It's done.
dead.
It's done. Yeah, it's done.
Yeah,
Unless you're doing it independently and you've got your own money, and you're going to do it that route.
yeah,
It's rough, without
yeah,
question.
absolutely.
Now, talking about production companies, how does should a screenwriter submit their work to a producer or a company?
Mhm. Well, it's challenging because a lot of them don't accept unsolicited material
Hmm.
for various legalities. That being said, some will have open processes where you have to sign certain forms and then they'll accept it.
Hmm.
Again, I would target a production company that does your type of material. I would find a person in that production company, not just blindly send it there. I would get on the phone, build a relationship with them, meet them on social media. And, I think the best approach is to ask advice. If you're a new writer in this industry, you know, you don't have all the answers. And oh, by the way, I don't have all the answers.
Hmm.
I'm constantly asking advice from people. I've had the good fortune of sitting down for a couple of hours with Michael Eisner. I've known Michael for 5, 6 years. No, it's probably been like 7 years now.
Hmm.
And I'm always looking for advice from him, but I'm also looking how can I add value to him. Um,
Right.
but I'm always trying to, what are your needs and how can I satiate those as a production company? What do they want to do? Do they want to make art? Do they want to win an Oscar? Do they want to make money? Of course they want to make money. And there's nothing wrong with making money. This is an industry where, you know, great, make money.
Right.
If Alex's screenplay gets made, it's going to employ thousands of people, and there's going to be all these other ancillary business entities that are going to benefit from Alex's screenplay. It could be on HBO and Showtime. It could be on an airplane going to Europe. It can be in a hotel room while I'm there with my whatever. And
Right.
so it's a really interesting world in the fact that once the property is out there to the world, many people can benefit from it. And of course, when I say property, the screenplay.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I'm going to get more personal into your process. What is your process of writing a screenplay? If you don't mind us, just the basic, A's
Yeah.
and BC's. What's your process of? Because I always find it fascinating. Everyone approaches the craft differently, so I'd love to hear how you do it.
Yeah. So the idea is obviously paramount. So does the idea really rock your world? Is it something that you're thinking about a lot and is almost haunting you? And if you can package it into that log line, package is not a good word for this, but
Right.
if you can create a log line where you've captured what you initially responded favorably towards your idea, then you're onto something. So I do the log line, and I work a lot on that as far as just sculpting, resculpting it. Like you said wisely, every word counts,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Even if it's the right word, is it the right word for the lyrical nature of your logline?
Hmm.
So you have to see how it fits into the overall scheme of things as well.
Log lines are generally it's an art form in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your audience members out there that may not know what a log line is, it's a one-liner. I often say it's a one-liner instead of log line because I'm not even sure where that etymology came from.
Right. Where's the log and where's the line? I don't understand.
Exactly. So once I have the log line, I do a two-page movie, which is basically 2 pages double spaced of if Alex and I were walking to the bus stop and Alex says, "Hey man, I gotta go. What did you see last night?" And I tell you what my movie is as we're both going in different directions. It's that fast.
Mhm.
It's just really broad strokes, but it's more involved than the log line. And then I do a 30 to 60 beat outline. And but I hit some. Oh, sorry, didn't have my phone off. I hit. Some, I sorry.
I cannot work like this. No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fired.
All right, go ahead.
So,
You're saying.
yeah, so the outline hits various beats, and as you know, Alex, the opening pages are very important, especially page one.
Mhm.
The opening images, the inciting incident, the end of Act One, which I say is page 17, then page 30, then page 45, then page 60, which is the tentpole of your movie, page
Mhm.
75, page 90, and then what is your finale? Those are the main beats that you need to get first before you fill in the rest of your beats. And well, people go, well, how do I know what beat goes next? Well, I always say the best movies are good news followed by bad news. Good news followed by bad news. And but they are increasing in intensity as the screenplay or movie progresses. So if there's a good news moment, there's going to be an equally powerful bad news moment. And then the next good news moment is going to be even more substantial. And the next bad news moment is going to be more substantial. And it has to adhere to the law of rising action.
Mm.
Okay. Because of the best movies, it grows in intensity. That's what keeps us riveted, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So then once you have the outline established, character breakdowns. Now, with my character breakdowns, I like to do the protagonist and the antagonist, and it's in first person, and they're just kind of ranting. Okay, they're just kind of talking, and you're getting their personality, you're getting their vibe, and you're getting who this person is. I know a lot of writers and a lot of actors, what was their favorite color? What ice cream did they have when they were 3 years old? That's cool if it works for your process. For me, that's not my process. I just kind of like to capture the voice of the character and the energy of the character. And then it's off to the races.
And then you just start filling in those gaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the outline and it's similar when I write, the outline is everything to me. Like I have to have it's basically the foundation of the entire story. So without these points of like a guide, you're just lost, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's process different, but
Mhm.
for me, it makes it much easier because you're like, okay, I need to get to this point here. Okay, I just got to boom, boom, boom. This point here, boom, boom, boom. Here point. So having those key points they're just kind of like mile markers on the journey.
Absolutely. Structure is paramount. I mean, you're a professional. And this is another thing. New writers go, well, I want to be a writer, or I hope to be a writer. No, you are a writer.
Hmm.
And you're a professional writer when you start acting like a professional writer. And professional writers, they outline, they sculpt, they make this the blueprint on which they're going to create. And that's what structure is. It's the canvas on which we paint with words.
Hmm. That's
Okay, so
great.
when
That was actually quite beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. Hug. so, so when the studio is going to hire you for an original piece, a spec script that you've written, or for a rewrite, they're hiring you for your expertise in this craft as much as they are hiring you for your abundance of creativity and execution.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me ask you the age old question: what
Yeah.
is more important, plot or character?
I mean, that's a tough one to answer because I think it's a symbiotic relationship. It's
Hmm.
the balance. It's the yin and the yang.
Hmm.
It's the space between the notes makes the music. right? It's
Hmm.
this. I mean, this is what we're all talking about. So I would never put more weight on one or the other.
Hmm.
That being said, the best stories are about one thing. Okay, so you look at a commercial success like the movie Taken in
Hmm.
recent years.
Yeah,
Okay, that entire movie is about Liam Neeson doing what?
just killing and kicking everyone's ass along
But
the
but
way,
what's his ultimate
going to save his daughter.
right? His daughter has been
Kidnapped, taken. Sorry,
taken, right?
kidnapped.
So
Horrible, horrible name. Taken, much better.
yeah, so he just wants to get her back. So that is what the whole movie is about. In Jaws, they need to kill
The shark.
exactly. So, the best movies, I believe, are about one pending question that needs to be answered by the end of the movie.
So, what would be the question for Star Wars?
You tell me.
I would imagine it's the boy's journey to God. I've seen that movie a million times and I'm a huge fan of it. But like, how can you? And it's probably the best example of the hero's journey ever done to film. I can't say. I don't know. Like, isn't it about Luke's journey to find himself and become a man? Eventually, his journey from being a boy to being a Jedi along the way, a path, and oh God, you see, it's getting very convoluted here
Where does he find his power?
within himself.
There you go.
That's
Okay.
it. That's the story.
Andy in Shawshank Redemption, the Tim Robbins character, this is a man who felt imprisoned and only experienced freedom by going to jail for a crime he didn't commit.
Right.
So he could have been, uh, sans incarcerated, so free of being incarcerated his whole life, and continued to do his accounting or banking, but he would have never felt free unless he had that experience.
That's very true.
Yeah. So,
It's always finding that one thing it's about.
yeah, it is. And there's a great line, get busy living or get
Get busy
busy
dying.
dying.
Ah, that pretty much covers it, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's a great line in the movie, and it basically is the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole movie is basically in that line: "Get busy living or get busy dying," and that explains that movie. So I talk about that movie constantly on the show because
It's a masterpiece.
it's one of my top five.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you've been busy not only as a screenwriter but as also as a teacher,
Mhm.
an instructor, and you've created this awesome course called the $1 Million Screenplay. How did you come up with the course, and what was the purpose behind it?
Yeah. So, I taught at UCLA for over a decade, and I've spoken around the country at various events when they've invited me on the craft of screenwriting. And I thought, okay, well, a lot of people are always asking about the $1 million screenwriter or the $1 million screenplay. What is that all about? And it's not about selling the $1 million screenplay and becoming a $1 million screenwriter. It's about having a body of material that's going to influence the masses positively through your art. So I thought, well, how can I communicate that in a course? And I thought, well, I'm going to teach the same thing I taught at UCLA in the undergraduate program and in the master's program. And structure is going to be a big part of it. And I'm going to hopefully put it in a form that's digestible to whoever wants to take the course. And it's not going to be 25 or 50 hours long. It's going to be 2 hours long, and they're going to get as much from it as if they were in a master's program in screenwriting.
So it's a
Um,
really condensed version of everything. So like it's basically the log line of your course. Very condensed and right to the point.
well, that's right to the point. I am super blessed, Alex. I have a daughter, and she's amazing.
Right.
And someday she may want to become a screenwriter. So I thought to myself, well, if I were going to sit down with her and walk her through this craft and put her in the best possible position to succeed as a screenwriter, what would I teach her? And
Mhm.
that's what the course is.
That well, I've already started taking the course. I haven't gone through the whole course just yet. I've started taking the course, and I was so blown away just by the beginning of the course that I reached out to you. I was like, oh no, I got to get Paul on the show. I got to get Paul on the show. I gotta spread the word. I gotta spread the word. I drank
Thanks,
I
man.
drank I drank the Kool-Aid, sir.
Thanks. And Udemy is a nice platform for education, and I'm proud to be on their site.
Yeah, it's an awesome course, and that's a great. I just discovered it myself, Udemy, and they are amazing. And I'll make sure to everyone to have links in the show notes where you can get the course and stuff. Now, on a side question, I have just because I know you've been we're probably around the same vintage, um, so we there was a time where there was the rock and roll screenwriter. Arguably to say that Tarantino is probably the last rock and roll screenwriter uh, today, but there was that moment in time when there was the Shane Blacks of the world,
Mhm.
and the Joe Esterhouses, and they were making 2 million a pop, 3 million a pop, sometimes 5 million, depending with back end or bonuses on
Yeah.
screenplays. Um, what are those days completely gone, and how different is the landscape, the screenwriting landscape today?
Mhm. Yeah, well, deals are structured in all sorts of creative ways when you're dealing with agents, and so you look at someone like an Aaron Sorkin, okay, and
Right.
I'm not gonna, yeah, I certainly like the Steve Jobs movie, but I think Social Network was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
So if Aaron Sorkin got his quote, so what I don't know what he's getting these days, probably $2-3 million a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a chance maybe they said, "Hey, Aaron, can you take 1 million on this and get some back end points?" I don't know if they did that deal. I have no idea,
Mm-hmm.
but that could be super lucrative
Mm-hmm.
for a screenwriter. So when you look at just what's in, the trades of what a screenwriter made on a script sale, I wouldn't look at that. I would look at, you know, the deal behind the deal.
Right. And
And
that's
then, yeah, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I want to hear what you're going to say.
No, I was to your point, I was actually watching a documentary on Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, he's I've studied Arnold's career for many, many years, like child of
Sure.
the 80s and stuff. But he was talking the business side of things, and they asked him the question, which was the most lucrative film you've ever made? That made the most money on. What do you think the answer is to that? I'm sure you know his whole filmography. Which movie do you think he made the most money on?
That's a good question. I would imagine Terminator, he had back end points when it got into the sequels.
Today, to this date, the
Mhm.
most profitable film he ever did was Twins.
Really? Did he get back end points or?
They structured a deal that
Yeah.
was it's kind of almost like the George Lucas, oh, don't worry about the merchandising rights deal.
Wow. Yeah.
Because him and Danny DeVito and Ivan Reitman, the director, they all walked in to, I think it was Universal, if I'm not mistaken. It was Universal or Fox. I forgot who it was. I think it was Universal who did it. And they walked in and they talked to the president and like, look, we're all gonna do it. We're all gonna do it for like no money. We just want like, and it was an insane amount of back end points, something
Hmm.
that no one has ever done before. But the studio was like, oh, great. If it's a hit, we'll make some money. If it's not a hit, we don't take, because Arnold was asking for 20 million at the time and, all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. And he didn't say the number, but he says it's the most lucrative thing. He said, so back end points, and it's actually depending on the kind of deal you can make is,
Yeah.
it's very lucrative. I mean, look at
It's- yeah.
look at I mean Keanu Reeves on the Matrix movies, Jack Nicholson on the Batman movie. He pulled like 60 million off of that because he got a piece of the merchandising. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps giving, and that's where good representation comes into play. Because as a creative, I would encourage you to try to negotiate those deals yourself, and even if you have the ability to negotiate those from your upbringing or past life experiences, it's better to keep you clean as the creative, I think.
Right.
Uh,
It shelters you a little bit from the messiness that is the business.
Yeah, so it could be, involved. So, and then you look at the guilds, right, Alex? So you
Hmm.
have the Directors Guild, the DGA, and then SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and the Writers Guild of America, WGA, and Producers Guild of America. Those guilds are set up to protect the creative person.
Hmm.
So, you could look up, the August Rush deal. I think it was in March of 2000, and go, wow, that was a big number. But it's really about the life of the movie afterwards. And there's no better time to be a creative person, a screenwriter, especially, because just go to your local cable operator and see how many channels are on there.
Oh God, and let's not even talk about streaming,
Streaming and Netflix, and now Amazon's in the game, and
Hulu and
right,
YouTube.
absolutely, and it's going to keep going and growing as it should.
Hmm.
And new forms that are no longer new forms. Webisodes are fantastic. So
Now, do you suggest do you suggest screenwriters kind of also dip their toes? Like, I mean, screenplays are, for feature films is, that's the golden trophy, if you will. That's the thing that everybody's like, oh, I want to see my movie in the big screen. But you might take a different route. Like now, like, oh, maybe you could get something done on Hulu or on Amazon or Yahoo or things like that might have very much more difficult times trying to get done more mainstream, but it gets your foot in the door and now you have something to show. Do you suggest them stuff like that?
yeah, absolutely. I don't think any avenue has a monopoly on how a writer should be produced and out to the world. And again, don't be so precious with your work. I want to have an Oscar, so unless I get a studio deal, I'm not going to accept anything.
Yeah.
No, get yourself out there. This is all about sharing your gift with others. This is a short journey. I mean, I hate to say it, but 100 years from now, most of us are not going to be here,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, I just read Nikola Tesla's books. Actually, there's a few books on him, and after I read the first one, I kind of became addicted to his story.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing man.
and this was a person who was like, yeah, let the Edisons of the world make crazy cash. I'm just going to keep creating and I'll be okay. And he was.
Right. And,
And that doesn't mean you should be frivolous and irresponsible with,
well,
your finances.
he could have made a couple of choices, just a couple of, you know, patents, just a couple. He
Yeah.
could have been doing a little bit better. He didn't have to have such a tough time, but
Right, right.
it's balance. It's all about balance. Edison's on one end, Tesla was on the other. You should meet
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And Tesla had a few a few patents as well that he did sell, but you're
Yes.
right. You're absolutely right. And then it's funny that his name's Tesla, and then the new car company Tesla, followed. It was named after him.
Right.
And look at the amazing, innovative things Tesla Motors is doing. It's
Uh,
unbelievable.
it's crazy, and I can't wait for the price to come down so I could afford one.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, and one thing I wanted to say, I wanted to cover real quick because you mentioned this earlier in the podcast that with managers and agents, and this is something I want to kind of stress to people. Like, you're starting out screenwriter and you have one screenplay, and you have the opportunity to pitch Aaron Sorkin, and let's say it's aligned with Aaron Sorkin, you might not be Aaron Sorkin's agent. You might not be ready to be thrown into that kind of world yet. You might not have the arsenal yet, the experience yet to like be thrown into a writer's room because you haven't done it yet, or you haven't had the experience. You haven't written those 20 screenplays or 10 screenplays. You haven't worked out your craft enough. Is that a fair statement to say, or to be weary of that sometimes? I mean, obviously when an opportunity knocks,
Yeah.
take it, but you should be cautious about that kind of stuff, right?
Well, let me understand your question. So you're saying, just so I understand, that if you are given the opportunity to jump into the
The big leagues.
tumultuous waters of the big leagues,
But you
be
haven't but you
patient
haven't but you haven't
because
done
you think
minors
you're
league. Right, but you haven't done minors leagues yet. And they're like all of a sudden I'm in the starting lineup of the Yankees, but I've swung the bat 15 times in my life. So is it smart to jump in there because you'll never get that shot again? Or is it? Do you see what I'm saying? Because I'll
yeah,
give you a real quick story. I was brought in after I did one of my movies. I was brought into some major agencies and major talent agencies and agents and managers, and I had a lot of meetings. And there was this one agent that I had a meeting with, and he was smelling me out. He was trying to kind of figure out what I could do, and I didn't come from the place of what I could do for him. I
Mhm.
came from the place of what you can do for me.
Mm.
And I was also realizing that I was just not ready yet. Like, I was not ready yet. Yeah, sure, I could direct a movie and I could do things, but if thrown into the deep end of the pool, would I have survived? I would have survived, but would I've thrived in that
Mhm.
environment? So that's the kind of maybe I'm coming from a fearful place. I don't know. I would love to hear your point of view of like what you should do if something like that happens. And obviously, we've all heard story of people like Robert Rodriguez who got the shot and he
Mhm.
flourished in doing what he does.
Yeah.
What do you feel? What's your take
Well,
on it?
my belief system is jump and the net will appear. And you look at somebody like Robert Rodriguez, who you just mentioned. So El Mariachi, he financed by becoming a personal lab rat where they
Yes.
were doing pharmaceutical experiments on him. I mean, this was a person who he's going to get it made no matter
He's
what.
driven.
He was driven, but he was driven not for fame or fortune. He was just wanted to express his creativity to the world.
Hmm.
Um, so I would say, okay, if you were going to give advice to Alex of yesteryear,
Hmm.
how would you have approached those precious, coveted meetings that you had differently?
Um, well, the thing is, I've gone through the path. I've gone through the game a few times. With my first film, got a lot of attention. I got studio calls. I got that stuff, and then I wasn't ready. I didn't have a screenplay ready. I didn't have any other projects ready,
Mhm.
and the heat was on me. But I didn't have anything else to show. So basically, everyone was like, "That's nice. You did this really great short film." But there was nothing left. Like I couldn't make it fast enough, and then by that time the spotlight was gone. On to the next guy, and the rest is history. So then it happened again when I released a few other projects of mine, and I've gone through this gambit a few times,
Mhm.
never making it to the big, but I've had serious meetings with serious guys and people. Um, what I would say to the old out, and this is like now turned into a session. I appreciate it. Uh,
Yeah, it's good.
what I would say to the Alex of yesteryear is to not be so not be so eager to impress people with what you
Mhm.
can do and your prowess.
Mhm.
Be more coming from a place of expression as an artist. On This is on an artistic the artistic point of view is become
Mhm.
share your voice
Sure.
and share your voice, share who you are more than trying to be the next this or the next that. And that's a mistake a lot of filmmakers make. On the
Yeah.
business side, I would have done more research. I would have prepared myself better to go into these meetings, to go into the battle of these meetings. In that sense, it was kind of like going in, it's like going to a knife fight, going to a gunfight with a knife. It's like how you brought a knife to a gunfight. It's
Yeah.
similar mentality. I was not ready yet. And also mentally, I wasn't there yet as well. So I think more homework would have
Mhm.
been my advice on the business side, and more expression of who you are as an artist, for better or worse, if the
Mhm.
people like you or not, and also not trying to please everybody, because you will never please everybody, and that's something I've learned doing indie film hustle and
Mhm.
being online, is you can't please everybody.
Sure.
My point of view is not going to be everyone's point of view, and that's okay. I mean, there's certain people who look at Howard Stern, who's made hundreds of millions of dollars on his point of view, whether you
Right.
agree with him or
Right.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people think he's a pig, some people think he's awesome,
Right.
but it's just the point of view, and that's all you can really do as an artist, is express yourself as who you are. And that's the people who I think become successful in whatever avenue they go down.
Yeah. Excellent point. And and that's a very honest assessment of where you were at the time and what you would have done differently. Because you have to be, a little bit brave to really take a hard look at yourself and who you are and who you were and who you want to be.
Hmm.
And we, of course, all want to be the best version of ourselves, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. But that being said, I think you could have made that relationship successful
Yes.
with the right approach and spirit
Hmm.
which you identified.
Hmm.
And you mentioned a couple of key things you've said during this chat, which I think is interesting. you said in one of your stories, you said you're never going to get this opportunity again. Well,
Right.
that's how a lot of people think. Of course you are. What is this one shot or nothing thing?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you'll never work in this town again. Those days are over. It's if you wrote, Schindler's List, and is an agent going to go, oh no, you pissed me off 2 years ago. I'm not going to. No, it's a masterpiece, so they're going to get it made.
Yeah.
Um, so I think let your material do the talking for you, and don't talk yourself out of a deal, which a lot of writers do. They get very excited and they don't know when to go, okay, I'm just going to shut up and let the experts talk and do my job.
Right.
And I'm talking to myself as well, by the way, when I give that advice.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one. No question
and,
about it.
and then Alex, one thing you said also, which before I forget, I'm going to mention, is going into battle.
Hmm.
Well, I would change your your inner voice. What battle? There's no battle. This is beautiful. This is going to be a lovely waltz, and it's going to be an under the moonlight waltz with Mr. or Mrs. Agent. And by
Hmm.
the end of it, we're going to part ways, and they're going to be feeling great and a little bit wealthier than before, and I'm going to feel great and get to do my craft at a high level. How beautiful.
Now I'm gonna say something here because I love what we're doing here. It's wonderful, and I'm actually getting a lot out of it personally, so I really appreciate it. But what I think is that a lot of filmmakers, screenwriters, artists in general, and I've been around this business for a long time, and I've been in the trenches most of that career. I've dabbled in, I've worked on projects. I've got Sundance. I've worked with Oscar winners. I've worked with people, a different project. My projects have never gotten to that level yet. But what I've noticed is, and it's something I'm working on as an artist as well, and that's what Indie Film Hustle is kind of teaching me, is that I have a lot of armor on, and I have a lot of like you said, that battle terminology, when my inner voice, my inner spirit is not that kind of guy. But being beaten up by the business for so many years in different avenues of the business, whether it be in post-production where I come from, or screenwriting, or filmmaking, or anywhere, artists generally will just throw this armor on, and then that armor starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier to the point where you can't move and you can't even do anything. Where
Mm.
someone like you just said, it's a waltz, it's a flow. When you think of a waltz, what do you think? You don't think of anything heavy. You think of something very flowing, very smooth, very just kind of going with the flow. And I think a lot of artists, as the years go by, become more and more disgruntled uh, in a lot of ways. I'm that person as well. I
Yeah,
have been,
yeah.
and I've been kind of trying to get myself out of it. And just hearing you analyze my terminology has shined a light. I'm like, man, he's absolutely right. It's not a battle. And if you
Mm.
walk into a meeting like that as a battle, then it's going to be a battle. But if you walk into a meeting like that with a much more open energy and just like, hey, this is the way it's going to go. And if it's for you, great. If it's not, there's another opportunity down the street.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's something I wanted to kind of say to everybody listening, that, you know, this business does beat you up a lot. And I'm sure, Paul, you can attest to this. I mean, it is a brutal business in many ways, but it doesn't have to be. And you can kind of make things flow for you. And I think a lot of people who are working at the highest levels aren't these kind of bulldogs. Sometimes they are, but a
Well,
lot of times they're
uh,
not.
and it depends who you're dealing with and
Sure.
what circles have you created, okay,
Yeah.
that you have, and getting getting beaten up. Who wants to be in that industry? Going to battle, trenches. These are all war terminology.
You're absolutely
So,
right.
so who wants that? So, as a new writer, I would encourage you to do this exercise. Write list of adjectives of what you think the entertainment industry is. And if your adjectives include brutal, pretentious, fake, and the list goes on and on and on, then I would encourage you to rethink and revamp that entire list. The entertainment industry, my list is they're creative, they're generous, We influence the masses positively. There's this wonderful thing we do, which we get people out of their daily routine and we put them in the moment to where they don't have to think about yesterday or tomorrow. They're right there in the moment. And there's residual value for people who read our screenplays and watch our movies. They can go back to their life and be, if their life is beautiful or chaotic, tumultuous, or joyous, they're going to come back with something of value to contribute to the loved ones in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, the holidays, right? Thanksgiving. What is Thanksgiving? It's giving thanks, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is collaboration? It's co-laboring. So
Mm-hmm.
start appreciating, because when you appreciate, things increase in value. When a house depreciates, it loses value. When
Mm-hmm.
it appreciates, it increases in value. So if you get in the habit of appreciating things in your life, even the little, kicks in the shin every now and again, and just appreciate it. Wow, what did that teach me? I mean, I look at the entertainment industry and, have I had my challenges
Mm-hmm.
along the way?
Of
Sure. If
course.
you're in, a career for a decade or 2 decades, you're going to have those times when you go, ow, that really hurt. That was painful. That hurt my feelings. This
Mm-hmm.
was emotionally trying. And you have to look at it and go, okay, well, that's true. And then you have to ask yourself, what did I do to invite that into my life?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you own that, okay, what have I gotten from this? It wasn't a lost experience. How can I use this for future endeavors? If I meet an unsavory person in the entertainment industry, even at a high level meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I instantly recognize, and I think to myself, oh, how can I help this person? How can I contribute to them? How can today be the day when this person will no longer be unsavory because of the energy I'm bringing to this dynamic? And how can we create something of value?
And that is the key, I think, with everything we do in life, is to be able to create value for people. And I think one of the reasons why this podcast and Indie Film Hustle has been so well received is I wholeheartedly am trying to create value. And I'm kind of an
You're
experiment for
doing it.
that. I'm an experiment for that, because I'm at the core of what I'm trying to do with this is to help people, because I was just tired of seeing so many filmmakers walk through my doors in post production
Mhm.
and just get, and I don't want to use this that negative terminology, but eaten alive by
Yeah.
the business in a lot of ways with their beautiful films, and they don't know how to market themselves, they don't know how to promote themselves, they don't think about the long term, that all this kind of stuff. I was like, you know what, let me see if I can shine some light and help some people along the way, so they don't have to go through the
Yeah.
pains that I went through or that I've
Yeah.
seen.
You're doing a great job, Alex, and it's really beautiful and altruistic what you're doing for writers and creatives, not just screenwriters, but anyone could, value from what you're doing, and I think it's awesome.
I'm trying.
And you look at someone like, so right now I'm in a deal with Shirley Maclaine, Oscar winner. I've
Hmm.
I've done copious projects with Shirley.
Hmm.
And Shirley is a person, if you look at her career, she's been working for what, over
Uh,
55 years or something.
she worked
Uh,
on among other movies, but one I love is the Alfred Hitchcock movie, Family Plot. If I'm not mistaken, she was in that one, right?
so what
No,
about
no,
Carrie?
that
Wasn't
was the
it?
one. That was the one.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes,
That
yes.
was her first
Yeah, yeah.
movie.
That was her first movie. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What a
And
first movie that was.
right, exactly. And she got, she was on Broadway, and I think Hitchcock was in the audience and saw her. But so Shirley's had this career, and everyone goes, "Oh, what a lovely, beautiful career she's had. It's just like sculpted out of magic, right?" But you look at her career, there were times when she gave her belief systems about metaphysics, quantum
Right.
physics,
Hmm.
past lives, aliens, that were, her beliefs were not in alignment with mainstream media and the mainstream thought processes.
Correct.
People wouldn't even allow that type of thinking in their realm. And, people really responded harshly towards her and what she was doing. And
Hmm.
she could care less. She traveled, she did more movies, she did Broadway, she did Vegas, she sang, she danced, she wrote books. I think she has 7 New York Times bestsellers. And Shirley MacLaine was and is a person who's on purpose, not paycheck. And as a result, those situations never even hurt her.
Right.
And she just kept going. She went, huh, interesting. Bam, kept going. Okay, so you, Alex, are now at a point where from your experiences,
Mm-hmm.
you can look back on that tumult that you experienced and go, huh, now I have a different perspective. I can look at it through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Your listeners who have not yet jumped into the deep waters of the entertainment industry can look at their life now and ask themselves, what journey do I want to have in the entertainment industry? And I would encourage all of us to not write our Oscar speech,
Just yet.
but to write our lifetime achievement speech.
Oh, that's great.
Right?
That's really great.
At age 90, when you're up on stage and your friends and family and kids and grandkids and everyone's up there, what body of work did you contribute to this world?
And that's a question you should ask yourself. What do you want to contribute to this world? Not what you can take from this world or from this business for that matter.
Exactly.
Well, I will ask just a couple questions I ask of all of my guests. Well, first of all, Paul, this has been an eye-opening and enlightening interview. I have taken as much as you're giving. I've taken as much as hopefully the audience will take out of this too. So it's been eye-opening for me. So I really appreciate your amazing
Thanks.
energy, man. I really do.
Thanks, buddy. It's been very beneficial for me as well, and really a big fan of what you're doing.
All right. So the last two questions I always ask all my guests. What is the most underrated film you've ever watched?
Okay. Are you asking a two-part question, or should I answer that one?
You should. And the second part is, what are your top 3 films of all time? So
Okay.
go ahead.
Gotcha. Okay, so there was a movie called Kolya. It was a foreign film. I believe it's Kolya.
Okay.
And I believe it was Czechoslovakian. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Just brought me to my knees. So that would be one that I think most people don't know about.
Okay.
And the next question was my top 3?
Yeah, and that could be the top 3 that you can come up with today.
Yeah,
because that always fluctuates depending on the room and the time you're in.
Yeah. There's so many great movies, not only in our wonderful country, but other countries as well.
Mhm.
So there's a Chinese movie called Farewell to My Concubine.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
sure if you ever saw
Oh,
that.
yeah. That was a while ago.
Yeah,
That was during my video store days.
yeah. There's a Brazilian movie called Central Station.
I've heard of that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, the same producer who did City of God, Donald Ranvo, did Central Station. He's
City of
great.
God is amazing too.
Yeah, fantastic. And then look at the young filmmakers of today that are just coming out with such interesting material and just breaking all rules and boundaries. I'm a big fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Anderson's great. Then you have the females. Audrey Wells is one of the great female writer directors that I think is underrated and has not shown us her best work yet, although most of her work has been extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Allison Anders. And so I look at the person, even Francis Ford Coppola. I had the good fortune of sitting down with Francis in class at UCLA. There was 8 of us. Yeah.
Oh my God, that must have been a heck of a day.
Oh, it was like 3 hours with Francis Ford Coppola. It's like, what?
And you're just talking shop?
Yeah, just talking shop. And this was a long time ago, but
Sure.
he was such a creative.
Yeah.
He came in very stalwart and the legendary director, but then once we asked him about, hey, what are you working on? He turned into a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the best creative people, right? I mean, we're all just splashing in the baby pool and playing in the sandbox and finger painting, really.
That's yeah. I have twin daughters, so and they're in that age now. So I feel you. I feel it. It's fascinating watching them grow.
Well, How old are they?
They're going to be 4 in in a few
Oh
weeks.
my
Yeah,
God, what
yeah,
a beautiful age, right?
yeah. It's every day is something new, and I'm introducing them to like different, like they know who the Hulk is, they
Mhm.
know who Yoda is. Like it's so fun. So like when anywhere in the world they'll point at Yoda or the Hulk like on some advertised like Daddy, it's your Hulk. It's it. So it's and that's starting to introduce them to story. But I'm
Yeah.
seeing what stories kind of resonate with them. Obviously, Frozen is the greatest movie of all time. Oh my God, if I hear that song one more time.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Don't
uh,
worry, Alex, just let it go. I had to do
that
it.
oh,
So
it was rough.
so bad.
That was a rough one. Uh, but yeah,
So,
it's
but that's
beautiful.
great, man. And your daughters, you have a responsibility to them. What is responsibility? Responding with ability. And Walt Disney, Bambi, he
Yeah,
saw how kids reacted and realized from that point on, this is a real responsibility I must take seriously.
right. Because yeah, Bambi was, and a lot of I don't know about you, but you have a daughter. How old's your daughter now?
6,
6.
yes,
So she's a little bit ahead of us. The Disney movies, the old stuff.
harsh, right?
I can't show them Pinocchio.
I
Like
know there's
it's
some
like
brutal ones, man.
I mean, they're turning into
Yeah,
donkeys. They're drinking. They're smoking. There's abduction. There's like it's like
yeah,
craziness. It's like
yeah,
the Grimm stories like seem tame.
yeah. It's pretty
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. It's some of it's like Snow White's way too harsh. Like I can't like I even the book. Like I
Yeah.
got them the book and they get scared by the imagery of the book. I'm like
Oh,
I can't. So I'm stucking more with the Pixar stuff, and even then, some stuff I'm
yeah.
hesitant about. But yeah, it is a responsibility, no question.
Isn't it great, man? Don't you love being a father?
It's wonderful, man. It really is. I know this whole interview is just all of a sudden just turned into two dads talking. Uh, well, Paul, I really, man, I can't. Well, let me one last piece of advice. If you
Yeah.
had one piece of advice you can give screenwriters just starting out, what would it be?
Right. Right, right, right. And just enjoy the process. Don't be so hard on yourself. As artists, we feel so deeply, so we get hurt and our feelings hurt and we beat ourselves up and give yourself a break, okay? The way that you handled things in the past does not have to be the future.
Right.
Okay, start reacting differently and be kinder and gentler with yourself. Create and continue to write on.
On that note, Paul, thank you again so much. It's been an amazing interview, amazing podcast. So thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks a lot, and to be continued.
I love that interview, man. Paul gave us so much good information, and I'm just such a big fan of August Rush. I do love that movie a lot. So, and I can't stress enough how amazing that course that he has put out, $1 Million Screenplay, is. I've taken a lot of screenwriting courses over the years, and it really encompasses a lot of great information, and it's very, very affordable for what you're getting. And in the show notes, which are going to be at indiefilmhustle.com/039, there will be a coupon code that I will be putting on the show notes so you can download the course at a discount, a huge discount for the amount of stuff that you get on it. It is an amazing course. Thank you guys again for listening. Please don't forget to head over to filmmakingpodcast.com to leave us an honest review of the show. It helps the show out dramatically. It is growing so fast I can't even explain it. So thank you again so much for all your support, guys. I really appreciate it. Keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I will talk to you guys real soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.